Now I want us to take a look at employment. So we will define what employment is. We will take a look at occupations, industries, and we will overview employment, like different roles in the employment field. So let's get started. Employment is basically an agreement between an employer and employee. Employers agree to compensate employees in exchange for their work time, and employees agree to follow employers' directions during work hours in exchange for employers' compensation. Employment can also refer to a process or result of that exchange. So let's take a look at the picture. So on the left is employee, and employee is following a given employer their basically performance. They follow directions during work hours, but directions should be legal and ethical, because if not legal, an employee can always say, no, I cannot do that. An employer is compensating the employee for performance, and this is a willfully agreement. That means that employee agrees to do that and employer agrees to do that. If they are not happy with each other and want to cancel the contract, it should be some procedure how to do that. Employers are looking for or hiring for some certain occupations and certain industries. So occupation is the regular activity that a person undertakes in order to earn his or her livelihood. So, for instance, a teacher or a driver or construction worker, a manager is an occupation. A principal is an occupation. And industry is any part of economy, a group of enterprises that creates a particular type of products. So car industry produces cars, or computer IT industry produces software, or computer industry produces computers. Industry is pretty vague definition, and that is why the industries are basically vague, but there are some certain tendencies. Let's go to employment roles. And the first employment role is an employee, which is or who is any individual employed by the employer for some compensation that most likely includes wages or a salary. By the way, wages or salaries is not the only compensation. Employers often offer different benefits or perks to their employees. Next role is independent contractor, and independent contractor is an individual or another legal entity that provides goods and services to their client under terms specified in a contract or within a verbal agreement. So I created another picture which is pretty similar to the first one with employee and employer, but there are big differences. So on the left there is a contractor, and contractor provides the contract client with the requested products, and on the right is contract client who is compensated the contractor for the requested products. So what is the difference between these two pictures? Employee is working. Employee basically goes like employee has an employer as a manager. An employer says directly, of course, through some representatives or officers, says what they expect employee to do. In contracting, a contract client says contractor what he or she wants to get out of the process. So another comparison is on this table. So W2 employee, oh, by the way, I called here employee a W2 employee because the laws different from countries to countries, from a country to a country. And what we're discussing right now is actually for the United States of America. And in the United States, regular employees are usually called W-2 employees because of their Internal Revenue Service form W-2. So what the difference between an employee, W-2 employee, and independent contractor? So with regard to work hours, employer sets work hours for employees, and independent contractors define their work hours on themselves. Employer defines work process and methods for the employee, and contractor is responsible for that when he or she is an independent contractor. Equipment in the employment usually it's provided by the employer, and in contracting, contractor is responsible for their equipment and training. Taxes and compliance, employers take care of those in employment. And independent contractor, basically they are self-employed. They work for themselves. That is why they are their own employers. That is why they are responsible for this. And revenue, employee has one employer, and the price is stated when the contract was made. Independent contractor can work for several clients, and the price can be negotiated. It can be higher or lower. Of course, it's much more flexibility, which is good and bad, depending on the circumstances. So who is self-employed? So independent contractors basically are self-employed, but self-employed could be also owners of the companies. What if someone cannot work as employee yet, but employer needs someone to work? In this case, the concept of apprentice is coming in. So apprentice basically an employee, but this employee is not paid the full amount or compensation which a fully skilled worker would expect to get. So apprentice pay increases as his or her skills and abilities increase. And of course, when an apprentice can work normally as an employee, like he or she gets the full compensation. And the last role is volunteer. Volunteer is a person who does something, especially helping other people, willingly and without being forced, but at the same time, he or she is not paid to do that. In America, it's illegal for a for-profit company hire someone and not pay. So volunteering, once again, in the United States, exists only in not-for-profit company. For instance, if you want to volunteer for a church or synagogue or a mosque or for a political campaign or for some cause, let's say I would like to support Africa or Asia or Europe or greet someone, yeah, volunteering is very often happens there, only in the not-for-profit world. So hopefully we overviewed employment and employment roles, and we are ready to go to occupations.